welcome to Randolph Martin's Friday Night Sports Talk on Sportanarium. This week is mainly Premier League we're talking about, and obviously the Champions League. Not much else sport going on. The golf, the Masters is starting this week, so we can have a little bit on that. If any of you guys know much about golf at the moment,
no, I don't. I'm afraid.
Really, it's just Bryson DeChambeau hits the ball about 5 million miles, and Tiger Woods can't drive. That's pretty much all that's been going on, really, up to the build-up for this. It's either Woods, who's not playing, or DeChambeau, who's a controversial character. How are you doing, Matt? You all right?
I'm good, thanks, mate. When you say Tiger Woods can't drive, are you making a dated joke, or are you talking about his tee shot?
It's kind of like a play on words, man.
No, not too bad, thank you, mate. Weather's a bit crazy up here as it is everywhere at the minute. Champions League's been pretty good. Watched Liverpool yesterday. They got absolutely battered by Madrid, considering how we played against them over the weekend. I was a bit irritated, but Arsenal aren't exactly what they used to be.
Arsenal or Real Madrid, that's what you want to say, mine.
Yeah, exactly. Paid £10 to watch Wrexham concede the 93rd minute goal to Torquay as well. So that was a bit of a... Yeah,
so
it was all right.
Introduce us then. Who we got with us?
Well, got my friend Lewis, who we met on the hockey pitch, didn't we, years ago?
Yeah, Brilliant District.
Camp as that sounds.
That was when we played guard. 2012?
Something like that. I think I was in like year 9.
Been a long time, wasn't it?
Years ago, mate. Yeah, played for the Seconds for years. Won the title twice in a row, so we got promotion 2 years on the bounce. And half the team sodded off to uni because our team was comprised of everyone from the high school who was really good. We did all right the year after. Did come like 5th or 6th with like a load of old blokes in the team as well. You teach hockey now as well, don't you?
Yeah, so I'm a hockey coach. A graduate assistant at Oldham School near Watford, and also a head coach for field hockey with Potspar Hockey Club.
All right, okay. I was talking to somebody today, and they were a Watford fan. I can't remember who it was, but I don't know what the link was. Do you follow Watford down there, or?
I don't. Like a lot of people support them, but I don't have a clue what's going on half the time. Or I'll just have a quick look and see how they're doing in the league. And I usually know 1 or 2 results have come in. I know they're doing all right at the minute, so and I know that much. But no, I haven't been to a single Watford game, but usually I'm too busy on Saturdays anyway, so I struggle to get there.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, if we start with the Champions League, then obviously Man City played this week, going for the quadruple. They're pretty much a quarter of the way there. Looks like they've won the league. There's only 6 or 7 games left, and they beat Leicester. Beat Leicester 2-0 away. Amazed really that they're. I'm not amazed that they're winning every week, but I'm amazed that they keep scoring goals when they're playing without a striker. Everybody seems to be scoring. If De Bruyne's not playing, Gundogan comes on and scores, or vice versa. News from today that De Bruyne has just signed a 2-year contract extension, so it's looking like he's staying for an extra 2 years. Obviously, Aguero's going, but we've had the conversation about who they're going to sign. They must have got somebody lined up with Aguero going, and looking at the body language between Foden and Haaland at the end of the game, I thought they were going to become strictly dancing partners when the game finished. So he may be on his way there, even though there's talk of his agent being in Barcelona this week and his old man. But what did you think of City's performance against Dortmund? Obviously, they beat them, but did you see much of it?
I didn't watch it, mate. No, I was watching the Liverpool game. I did see the highlights, so I thought Bellingham, that ghost goal that he scored, I think he took the ball off Edison, and referee gave a foul for some reason. That was a cracking finish, so it should have been a draw, if you ask me. City played really well from what I saw in the highlights, controlled a lot of the game. or at least a lot of the clips they showed. Supposedly, they dominate the midfield quite well, like they did over the weekend. I was listening to the Football Daily. They always baffle on about Fernandinho and Rodri constantly, but I think since probably, is it January when they started sort of pulling ahead from everyone, they've just been putting the performances in every week. Those two, when they've been pairing them together, I think. With Liverpool this season, it's a bit like what happened with City a couple of years ago when they were having to play Fernandinho at centre half, and it sort of didn't allow them to have that spine in the middle when they're trying to recover possession when they do lose it. Because the Leicester game you mentioned before, the reverse fixture sort of, they were saying in some of the analysis I was watching on Match of the Day, Leicester set up very similar, sort of really low block trying to counter attack, and it just didn't work this time. And the way the two City midfielders, Rodri and what was it, bloody name, Fernandinho, they controlled the sort of possession, picking it back up, and that really helped push City on. I think Foden was the best player on the pitch from what I saw. He got the goal that swung it for City. I think the away goal, Dortmund is still in with it, but the way City have been playing recently, you can't really bet against them. And is it? I think they were playing at home this time, was it? So, well, yeah, of course, if it's an away goal, they'll be playing away next time. Then you two see the game. I managed to talk for about 2-3 solid minutes there about a game I didn't really see, so you should be quite impressed with that. I didn't really say much.
Foden was awesome again. I say he's young, but he's already world class. I've been banging on the word for a couple of years, but he was awesome again. He was the difference really in the two teams. And as I say, with De Bruyne and him in the midfield, I can't see any. If they had a striker, then I wouldn't bet. I'd be putting money on them today on winning the quadruple. They're in the final of the Carabao Cup. With the league, they don't need to put out a full strength. They're that far ahead. They could lose them now. They could be. We're saying they put the second string team out. They could be putting the second and youth out and resting all the top players for the FA Cup, whatever it is, quarters and semis, the Champions League quarters and semis. They don't need the league. They've pretty much won it. I think the Bellingham goal, I've seen loads of social media, it was a goal, it was a goal. I'm totally impartial. I'd be happy for City to win the Champions League. United aren't in it. They're an English club. I'd be happy. But if that was your goalkeeper and you had one of their centre midfielders coming running at you, his studs were up. Yes, he got the ball, but it's still deemed as dangerous. The ref didn't even bother going to VAR because he'd blown his whistle. But it was a good goal. It was well finished. But normally, if you're in that situation, I think it was roughly waist height. So you've got to be bringing your foot back down. Yeah. You can't be up. If it maybe had been at a different angle and he was facing further away, maybe. But for me, it was a free kick. Technically.
I'll be honest. I think the pace that he's going as well, you can sort of see why he gives it, because you see that on a weekly basis sometimes where the keeper's hit the ball, miscontrolled it. Sorry, it's gone quite high or 2 yards or a yard away. He's stretching for it. He's missed. It's a Bellingham. It's just pinched it, but because he's pinched it and the keeper's gone to ground, he's thinking, oh, he's got the keeper.
Yeah.
Like you can see his decision making. Oh, he's got the keeper. It doesn't matter where he is. He's gone. Oh, he's got the keeper. Whether they need to change the rule and be like, if we think it's going to be a goal and you have to let the game sort of play out until that goal's been scored, and then use VAR to check it. I don't know, but the referee's blown up. In my opinion, he's made a mistake, but I can see why he's given it.
Yeah, I agree on the keeper's feigned the injury, but for me it's just the foot up. If the foot's up, the foot's up. And it's it's roughly waist high. If you're running a pace, the keeper's there, so you've got to pull out. Yes, you've got a chance of scoring a goal, but if 9 times out of 10 you'd pull out. And that's just one of those. It's just one of those things, isn't it? But all the hype on social media, I thought it's way over the top. They won the game. Obviously, City did, and yes, it would have been 2-2. It would have been if he'd been there a split second before, he would have got the ball more cleanly, and he would have been nowhere near the keeper. It's just, it's just one of those things. They're going to be kicking themselves, but they've got the away goal, to take back with them to Dortmund, and they've got a chance. But I just think City they've just got too many players. Obviously they got Sancho, Bellingham, and Haaland, so they've got a good nucleus there. But they're lacking in other areas. Dortmund.
Yeah. Another one for me as well. So I had a look at the Bundesliga table, and I think they're fifth. Dortmund, like, they haven't been doing too well when you compare them to Bayern Munich, who's I don't think they had a great start by Munich. I can't remember, but if you look at them now, they're on for Lewandowski's absolutely smashing goals in for fun like he does. But Dortmund have been sort of on and off all season. So for them to go and win the Champions League, they really need to kick on and try and get the form in the league and then through to the cups. I know sometimes it's different because your mentality is going, you've got to win this game, otherwise you're out. Whereas in the league, you can go, if we don't win this game, we've got 37, 32 other games to win, basically. And we can make the mistakes and learn from them.
Yeah, it's a tough one, but they're a good side. They've been there or thereabouts for a couple of years, and obviously to have Haaland in there as well, he makes. But when he's not firing, because I think he went 3 games for his country without a goal, so his confidence isn't at the top at the moment. But he'll come back. Obviously, then moving on to the Liverpool game, 3-1 against Real Madrid side, who are a shadow of their former self. Even only going back, well, just putting Ronaldo back in the team would make a difference. But 5-10 years ago when they had the Galacticos, they're a totally different side. I think the Spanish league has gone down massively. With Barcelona losing Iniesta and Xavi, and basically only having Messi and Piqué in the team of their former glory. Both those sides have gone down, and nobody's come up to match them, which I'm surprised that there's nothing there. So for them to be out, you've got to have Ronaldo and Messi in there. Obviously, he's at Juventus, and they're out as well. Yeah. So it's I don't know. With Liverpool season has just gone from bad to worse. You can't blame it just on Van Dijk. I was looking, Alexander-Arnold was awful again. I'm not surprised that Southgate's, stuck him on the back burner. His confidence obviously isn't there, but he loses the ball more than anybody else in the Premier League on the stats. So to have him in your defence when you haven't got your world-class centre-back there, and nothing's happening, nothing's going for them. Their strike force isn't scoring. Salah scored a goal, but they're not scoring constantly or consistently. Their midfield, they're chopping and changing their midfield all the time. They took Keita off at just before half time, I think, 42 minutes, and brought on Thiago, who's hardly made an assist all season. So any feedback on that? Was it injury, or did he just take him off because he needed to change his midfield?
I don't think so. There was a lot of people a bit unsure why they picked Keita, because I don't think he's really been firing for Liverpool. I don't really think anyone in the middle's been firing for Liverpool recently. But there are a lot of my mates who are Liverpool fans who are a bit surprised by him starting. They just looked tired when I want to say when they were trying to press, but they didn't even really try and press to try and get Real Madrid out. What was it? First off, I don't really think they had any chances really, and it was the mistakes that let them down mostly. Vinicius, I have to say, I thought he was absolutely fantastic. I'd not seen him play before, so I didn't really know if it was all hype or something like that, because you always see people on Twitter and that talking about all the FIFA players and all these wonder kids coming over, but he looked really lively. He was playing off the shoulder of it was a Nat Phillips on the right side with Alexander Arnold. He was running amok on those two all game. Took both his goals really nicely as well.
That first goal.
Back to Liverpool not pressing that ball. Like Liverpool a year ago, do you think they'd have let Tony Kroos smush that ball 50 yards over the top? Sort of someone wouldn't win. I know that injuries, recruitment, but they just don't even seem to be. I think a lot of the players might be tired from maybe. I know all the teams really have had the same condensed season. Liverpool have had the Club World Cup as well, in fairness, and sort of the extra games with winning the Champions League the year before. So you could probably argue the players are a bit tired, but they have played the same condensed season as everyone else. So to me, it's the lack of recruitment in defence. Kabak as well. He's one of the ones they've brought in. I think it was the second goal where he headed it back towards Alisson, and was it Asensio nipped in, just finished it. Yeah, who did they sign as well? That young lad from was it Preston, Ben Davis? Yeah, from Preston. Has he even played? Like, if you're gonna, you're losing a world class centre back, who are you replacing him with? Young Turkish lad from Europe who's not really proven, apart from maybe who did they sign him from? Was it Schalke?
Schalke. Won one game all season.
Are they even in? Oh no, it's Hamburg that are in the Bundesliga got relegated. Yeah, so he's only played one game all season, so he hasn't really even played in the Bundesliga. And Pearson, Davis, not bloody Pearson, that's me. What is it? He's played in the Championship for Preston. He's probably played a fair bit, but you always stick him in against Real Madrid, and sort of the back four as well. It was quite a makeshift back four, apparently. They had Mulatto and Nacho at centre half, and then Vasquez at full back, and Phil and Mendy, who I think had a really good game as well. He looks really quick. He's 22, 23, something as well. So credit to Madrid. They did what they needed to do, played fantastic. Liverpool as well, considering I guess it's just a testament to our Arsenal are at the minute if they can make us look that bad on Saturday and then turn that performance in against Real Madrid, 3 days later. So.
I think that Vinicius was like playing second fiddle to Ronaldo when he was there a couple of years ago. Yeah. They bought him when he was 16 or 17, and he was touted all over Europe as like one of the top guys. So he's obviously come in. I think he was like Brazilian under 15, and he was banging in the goals, and a good few years back, and touted as the next. The next Mbappe. Mbappe's not even Mbappe yet. But Tony Kroos was banging the ball left, right, and centre. What was I going to say? The Liverpool midfield, they're just non-existent. Tiredness does not wash with me 1%. If you're a professional football player, you're not playing every game. If you're a striker, you're literally a little bit of jogging, getting yourself into position, and then you make your sprints. You do your sprints, you do your turns. You're not running 13 kilometers in a game as a striker. So for me, Firmino, who's lazy anyway, Mane, who's done nothing since last season when he was one of the best players in the Premier League. Banging in the goals at the right time. Every few games. Salah still playing well, still scoring goals, but strikers can't be tired. It just doesn't. You can play Saturday, you can play on a Wednesday. You get enough of a break. You don't train much in between if you've got 2 games. Like this season, they can't have done a lot of training because of the amount of games that they've had to pack in the last 4 months. So for me, the only ones that could be tired would be if you're a midfielder, like I don't know, whoever. Thiago hasn't been playing a lot. All the players have been playing out of position. They haven't got a Henderson that's been playing every single game. So if you were playing on a Saturday, a Wednesday, and a Saturday, and you were running 12 to 13 kilometers a game, then yeah, fine. You've done 7 miles of run. They don't jog it. They're running. They're sprinting. They're running. There's not much jogging. Or relaxing time there. You're either, you're doing a hell of a lot of running at a good pace. So they could be tired. But that's if you've played 3 games in 7-8 days, on the bounce. And a lot of these Liverpool players haven't been doing that because they've been switching them around, or there's people been injured. So, and a defender, same thing. You know, if you're a wing back, you're running up and down the wing. Yes, you're running quite a bit, but the tiredness thing doesn't wash for me. Not if you're a professional sportsman, it shouldn't be an issue. And most of these guys are 22, 23, 24. There's not many, apart from Milner, you know, who's another guy that doesn't play that often. So he's getting plenty of rest in between. You can run for 90 minutes at 30, 31, 32. It doesn't wash. It doesn't wash for me. So, and for me, it would be the injuries. You know, you lose a couple of world-class players. You know, your world-class defender. You know, Henderson was player of the season last year, you know, for the whole of the Premier League, I think, wasn't he? Didn't he win it?
Yeah, player of the year. Yeah.
So you've lost a player of the year. You've lost one of the best, well, you know, debatably one of the best centre backs in the world. Yeah. Definitely in the Premier League, one of the top 2 or 3. So that's your spine there. You know, you've still got your front 3, but if you lose, you know, a 70-odd% of your spine there, it's going to make a difference. But for it to make a difference of them running away with the league to potentially be in 8th or 9th at the end of the season, depending on how other results go, that's just, you know, there's something wrong there for me I love Klopp. I think he's a brilliant character. He got Liverpool to the title last year, which is fantastic for the Scousers for their 30-year wait. But there's something not right there for them to. You don't lose that amount of impetus. What do you think, Lewis?
Yeah, I was literally just about to bring up Klopp as well. Yeah, he seems a different character. I think we can all agree on that. Like, he's always been the media's best friend. You know, he's charismatic, he's got all that. But this year, he seems to be very exclusive for everything. And obviously, if you're looking into the psychological side of him, he's had, his mother's passed away. He hasn't probably been home for ages. You've got all that going on. So you wonder if that's had an impact on him and his coaching ways. It might do, it might not. But I think when you look at how long he had to recruit for Liverpool, if someone can find out when Van Dijk got injured, because they had a bit of time to recruit there.
It's about a year, isn't it? It's roughly a year since he's been injured. It's got to be
yeah, like, he's been out for a long time. We all know he has.
It was in the Merseyside derby, wasn't it? It was on October, maybe. I think. Yeah, October.
You know, he's been out for so long. We know it as well. They know it. They were hoping he would be back January time, I think it was. Mm-hmm. Clearly hasn't been. So you've had time there to just go, okay, he might not be back, but we need to replace. But when I've spoke to a few Liverpool fans as well, and they've obviously watched every game they possibly can, it sounds like they've just, well, they've put Henderson Fabinho at centre-back, and it's like, well, if you want your team to be like what they were last season, you've got to try and just play that sort of way. You just got to replace one player, and that's Van Dijk. So do you sort of try and get your players to swap and recruit somebody else to go in that role, or do you change your formation? There's loads of stuff we can work as a coach to sort of figure that out. But not everyone spoke around how, like you said there, Henderson got player of the year. Here you go, let's drop him into centre-back. In my opinion, that's not the right thing to be doing. If he's one of your best players, you get him in that best position you can to get him on the ball. There's a lot of interesting things going on, though, with Liverpool. I'm not too sure. These, apart from that Real Madrid game, it seems like they've been getting themselves back on form, though, recently. Maybe not as strong, but they're getting results, which might end up getting a top 4 finish after this season, which might be a surprise for some. It's a tough one because his teams are on form at the minute.
Well, there's only about 7 or 8 games left in there, and I think if Everton win their game in hand, they go above, because West Ham won, didn't they? So they're above them. I think Everton are a couple of points behind, but if they win their game in hand, they go above them.
If Everton win, they go 6th. Sorry, I've got on my phone.
Yeah, so they jump above them, and then there's, I think Spurs above them already because they won, didn't they?
Yeah. Spurs are 6th at the minute.
Yeah, so Spurs are above them, and then it's I think Villa now are going to struggle. I know they'll end up being a point or two behind Liverpool if they win. They got one more game in hand, but I think they've got. We'll talk about them in a bit, but they've got quite a few tough games coming up. But I think if we stick with Liverpool for a sec you mentioned Henderson, your player of the year, you're playing in midfield. He was running, he was doing his mileage every game. He changed his game from the year before, because the year before he's synonymous with the side pass. There was nothing to his game for a couple of years. He was a good engine on him, decent leadership skills, but he's just passes the ball sideways. He hasn't got a cutting edge to him. Whereas last season, he was a different animal. So to stick him from midfield into central defence, that's like saying to a goalkeeper, go and play up front. It's a totally different position. Everything in the game. If you've ever played football and you were a striker or a left midfielder, and then they asked you to go and play left back, and you've got the calls of offside. There's so much to do, and you can say, oh yeah, but they train. They train together. But to go from the player of the year in midfield to then being taught how to all the different signals that because they played the same four every week pretty much. With Arnold and Robertson and Van Dijk, they were all every week. So you get telepathy. Once you've been playing for week after week, month after month, a couple of years together, you know exactly where you're going to be. If you're going to go up, the other person's going to go back. So you have that confidence. Van Dijk driving forward with the ball and putting 40-yard balls on the top. You knew he was happy doing it because he knew there'd be somebody covering him. Whereas if Henderson's there and Fabinho's there, they ain't got a clue what the other person's doing. If Henderson goes up, he's thinking, oh, is Fabinho going to be behind me because he's a midfielder as well? It's a confidence thing. And I think that's where Alisson has been lacking this year. Last year, he had all the confidence in the world. He's passing the ball, 40 yards to the left wing, the right. You knew exactly where he was going to be. When you've got a different front four in front of you, it's in his head. Oh, shall I be coming out for this? Why hasn't the centre back come back and spooned up the ball? Why is it up to me? And he's made mistakes, whereas last year he didn't make any mistakes. Yes, they're his fault, but then you've got to be thinking he hasn't become a bad goalkeeper in 8 months. It's all the communication of everything that's going on in front of him. It's so many things, I think, for Liverpool this year. You can't nail it down to one. We've just brought in 4 or 5 there. And there's, I think with Klopp...
The season would probably be a lot more. You could list, couldn't you?
Well, you mentioned Klopp there. Did you hear Klopp's reasoning why they lost against Real Madrid last night?
Training ground or something, weren't it?
Yeah, it was like playing at Real Madrid's training ground.
The thing that made me laugh the most about that is obviously there's no fans at the minute. There's no fans, and I looked at that Real Madrid pitch and was impressed. I was like, wow, that's better than half the pitches, like probably better than Championship standard, probably better than half the Premier League standard. That looked a good pitch in my eyes. Yeah. So when I saw that, I thought that was just hysterical, like comedy for me.
But that shows his mindset, Mark, doesn't it? It shows his mindset that, it's a bit like, Mourinho a couple of years ago when he was at United. You don't need to make excuses, especially stupid. Klopp's come up with 4 or 5 this year, ridiculous, and it makes him look stupid, and he doesn't need to do it.
No, I understand like the whole. Sorry, Martin, I've cut you off.
That's all right, mate.
I understand the whole protecting your players sometimes if they've made mistakes or your team's performance and you don't want to hammer them, because especially when you've not been as good as what you were, the last thing you sort of want to do is bring that confidence down. But sometimes, like you see a lot of professional managers, whenever you just watch press conferences or whatever, they just sometimes just literally go, they were better than us. And sometimes you've just got to admit that and just go, yeah, they were better than us today, or we weren't good enough. Next game, let's go and get 2 goals. 2-0.
Yeah, I mean, you've heard, like you said before, you've heard Klopp all year blaming it on different things. I remember at the start of the year, he was blaming the media mainly, and he went on for 2 or 3 minutes when the report was on BT after think they had a lunchtime kickoff on a Saturday after a Champions League game on a Wednesday night, so he really wasn't happy. He just doesn't, like you said before, Lewis, he just doesn't seem himself anymore. Don't really know what's going on. There's probably a number of factors in his personal life that have gone on, like we've touched on, but I think the recruitment mainly, like you've said, they just didn't. Who would you have bought hypothetically to try and fill in for Van Dijk?
I
'Cause
mean, I don't know how much they've got
I
to
can't really
spend,
think of it.
but
Supposedly,
like Ben Davies,
yeah,
I haven't seen him.
yeah, no,
Is that
exactly.
just we bought a centre back, or is it we wanted him deal? I'm not too sure.
Young player, but some of the Liverpool fans I've spoken to at work, obviously they read a lot more of like what's going on at the club than I do. Don't really care about Liverpool. They hear a lot being in North Wales. What was it? I think John Henry. He was 6. It's something First Sports Group or something that owns them. They've invested quite a lot of money over the year supposedly, but I think they've made quite a lot back. So they got 142 million or something daft for Coutinho, and that paid for most of Van Dijk and I think Jota, and left quite a bit in the bank. So I think they're trying to run it a bit like
pay that extra million, a few million, or something if they made so many appearances.
Was it something to do if they won the Champions League? They had to pay them like another 10 million.
Yeah, there was something stupid. Liverpool would get so much money.
Some daft clauses in it.
Yeah, there was something stupid.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that's one of the main things for Liverpool. They just haven't bought a centre back in, so obviously you're not going to be able to, especially if you've got that many injuries. And Alexander-Arnold hasn't been playing anywhere near what he was last year. Like, put a really good ball in for Jota's first goal on the weekend against us, but like I said before, he was just making mistake after mistake in the Madrid game. I think you said Randolph, he's given the ball away more than probably more than any other player this season. So probably devoid of confidence. He is like 22 at the end of the day still, so he's quite young. He's obviously probably going to bounce back to what he was at some point. I don't know. I think there's just too many players in the Liverpool team that look a bit short of confidence.
I sort of wonder if teams have figured him out. You look
at
Liverpool, teams figured him out basically, and have they realised he's almost a deeper winger? The way he likes to go is try and push forward, and if they just gone right, let's left side, he's going to be opening space. If we plant someone that side, we might be able to feed balls or whatever it may be.
Yeah, they've targeted him. They've targeted, and if I was a manager, I would definitely be targeting him. And we'll come on to United in a minute because we're obviously second. And for me, it's the same with Wan-Bissaka. They're good at going forward. You just mentioned Arnold there. He's done a great cross for Jota, and Wan-Bissaka scored a couple of goals this season. And going forward, he's good down the wing. But if you're a right back, you're a defender. So the thing that you should be doing the most is defending. And that many times this season, United have played a pretty similar back four all season. But you look at the back four and you see Wan-Bissaka's gone up, but then you've got Maguire, Lindelof, and Shaw, and technically the two centre backs should be skirting across to cover him. But there's been that many times where they've lost the ball up front. It's come across to the right hand, to the opposition's left wing. He's got the ball, and Wan-Bissaka's either tracking back next to him or he's behind him, which then leaves the centre-back Maguire coming across, who should have been across anyway, which then leaves a big gap in the centre. And it's happened that many times that, and people are, banging on about him as an England, right back, and he's one of the best in the Premier League. Maybe going forward, yeah, but I like my defenders to be defenders. Yes, it's a plus. I think the wing back scenarios come in a bit too much in the game. When you look at people like Roberto Carlos, it's like he's a left wing back. He was one of the original left wing backs, and you had Cafu for Brazil, right wing back. They had some engines on them. They did, but they were world class. But they had a world class midfield and a world class centre backs to help them out. When you look at I can't even remember his name. What was his name? He was a Spanish captain centre back for Real Madrid.
Ramos.
No. Before Ramos.
No, before Ramos.
Yeah.
Madrid.
Yeah. He was tall. 6'2", 6'3", centre back, Spanish captain.
Albion. I'm just trying to think of players
No.
It's
I
not
can't,
Carlos Puyol.
no.
No, it's Barcelona, isn't he?
Yeah,
Not
yeah.
just.
But he was.
Yeah,
I can picture him right in front of me. Curly black hair, tall, imposing character. Really, really good. So you've got him in the centre back, and next to Roberto Carlos. So he was given the license to be up and down, and you had feet. So basically, you had him and Figo in tandem. With Zinedine Zidane, Beckham. What's the up front? Raul. So you had a nucleus there of players who were world class. So he had the ability to be up and down. Cafu for his country, up and down. But when you've got Alexander Arnold up and down with Robertson up and down, where you've got two centre backs who don't play centre back, you've got a problem. And it's, to be fair, it's the same United. Maguire was 80 million quid from Leicester. He looked very good at Leicester. He looks okay for England, but he makes too many mistakes.
Yeah.
And when you're playing at United with Van Basten running up and down the wing, and you haven't gone across, if you haven't gone across, and Maguire's got he's got a turning circle like the QE2, he's got to turn his slab in, doesn't he? 180 degrees. So for him to be, covering for him, he hasn't got that mental speed of thought when he hasn't got that Teddy Sheringham where you're thinking a second ahead of what's going to happen.
Yeah.
He doesn't have that. So I just think that there's a problem with both of these two teams with their backs. Robertson's very good. He's up and down. He's got an engine. But I just don't think that Wan-Bissaka is for me in the same category as Alexander Arnold. Good going forward, but there's no need to have that if you're conceding goals. You've got to be defending. That's my opinion on it.
Yeah, if I'd could say that about Arsenal's fullbacks and defenders, to be honest. I'd give Tierney a pass. To be honest, I think he's really solid defensively. One of our best and most creative players going forward as well recently. Bellerin, though, I've always quite liked Hector Bellerin. I think he's a bit of a cult figure around because we've had him. I think he joined when he was about 14 or 15 from Barcelona, so he's been at the club for years. But again, really good going forward. Pace merchant, as everyone knows. For I think on a few occasions he was clocked as having like the fastest 40-yard sprint in the Premier League or something. I don't know about anymore. He's had a few injuries and that, but he's never, since his first couple of seasons, he looked okay defensively. But I think we had Koscielny and Vermaelen, again, really solid partnership we had years ago. And then when Vermaelen left, Koscielny and Mertesacker were quite good together for a while. But now, even in a back three, he just doesn't look convincing defensively. And like Wan-Bissaka, he chips in with goal, assist here and there. Can't take a throw in to save his bloody life. But again, should fullbacks be fundamentally defenders? Yeah, because you're a defender. If you can go forward, if you've got a good turn of pace, you can whip a ball in, great. If you can come in off the shoulder like Reece Hall-Johnson for Wrexham, who's another bloody wing back who can't defend to save his life, but he scores about 5 or 6 a season. What do you think about that, Lewis? Do you like attacking fullbacks, or do you need them? Do you prefer them to be solid?
Oh, you're asking a fullback as well.
Are you playing Football Manager, or are we talking real life to begin with? So.
Real life. That was my position in hockey. It's an awkward one. It really is, but I think it's just being smart more than anything. I think it's more, instead of always having to go for, I always defend before attack. That's how I've always sort of had it in my head. If you look at a team, you look defensively, mid, attack, because in my opinion, anyone can score goals, just some do it better than others. I think that's a fair comment as well. But yeah, when you're playing it, you do see little gaps popping through where you can go, oh, I can make a massive dive and run, like just absolute sprint and going forward and then do it. And then you realise what you've done is every single risk you make going forward, you leave a gap behind. And it's either you've got to hope a midfielder covers you, which very rarely happens in my opinion. I know a lot of elite teams will get that, But it's one of those moments where as soon as you start going forward, you know that risk is there almost. And if you're unsuccessful going forward, then you're basically allowing that team, whoever you're playing against, to counter attack against you. So I always try and look more defensively in the shape of, like you said before, if your left back goes, say you're playing back four, left back goes, the other three, so centre backs and right backs, sort of just tuck in to come more of a back three centre backs almost. Maybe not that tight and that deep, but that's sort of line where we just shuffle across and we almost try and mark half a pitch or playing half a pitch. And then if we need to come back out and we know it's going, that's when I can go back out to the right or something and start trying to focus my attacks down there. But I always think you're more of a playmaker at the back than going and try and do anything else. If you're going to go forward, try and play the ball as soon as you can. Look for a winger.
I think the obviously because we're kind of skirting towards Man United now after talking about City and Liverpool. I think a good example would be, say you got Wan-Bissaka now, or Luke Shaw. They're running down the wing, but aimlessly. They haven't got the ball, so it's more of a case of if you look at Gary Neville had David Beckham in front of him, Dennis Irwin had Ryan Giggs in front of him. And the only time that you would see them running down the wing is one, if they had the ball, or two, if they had the ball initially, Neville's given it to Beckham and then he's done his famous overlap and Beckham's giving it back to him. Or Giggs has got it, Irwin's given it to Giggs and he's done the run around and gone on the outside. So it's give and go and then you're asking for the ball back. Whereas I think with Shaw and with Wan-Bissaka probably a bit more, he's making runs down the wing when that's where the right midfielder should be running. So whoever's in right midfield, so maybe Rashford, at the time, that should be Rashford's run, and he should be staying back. Where Rashford's kind of running more towards the centre. Yes, it's leaving a gap for Wan-Bissaka, but if the ball is given away, then you've got a 60-yard run to get back. And I just think that they're making these runs aimlessly, expecting a midfielder from, the ball might not even be, they could be the right centre midfielder could have got the ball and then you look up and Shaw's gone on a 40-metre run. Well, that would have been Giggs years ago. And that should be the left midfielder now, or Martial, who's kind of like left centre of the strike force. Not a left back running 60 yards to get up there. And it's just leaving big holes at the back. I haven't watched City enough to, comment on them, but I just think that they've got really good centre backs in Diaz, Stones, Laporte. They've got three. You could pick any of those two who would be in any Premiership side, which then leaves plenty of leeway for either Kyle Walker or Mendy or Cancelo, anyone of their £650 million players that they've got and left or right back. That's a different story. But when you've got centre backs who aren't good enough to support you, or your midfielders who don't really understand that, why are these guys that going on the wing when it should be me doing it? It leaves the centre too congested then. And I don't know, that's my opinion on it. From what I've seen in the last 10, 15 years, it's evolved to have wing backs. But I think you can only be a wing back if the midfield is good enough to allow you to play that actual, the proper role.
I think teams do it because you can switch between formations very quickly. So I would probably say every team that I can think of has an attacking and defensive formation. So when you see it lined up on Sky, it'll be 3-4-3. That'll be the attacking formation, whatever they play. And then as soon as they defend, because it's 3-4-3, you can go into 5-2-3, or you can change it to 5-4-1, however you like. And I think that's why the wing backs get used more nowadays. And I think you're starting to see more of 3-4-3, is because it allows so much rotation within a formation, and to get 5 defenders back almost to try and make yourself a little bit more solid at the back.
Yeah, when Arsenal don't play a back three, when we set up with a 3-4-3, because usually we have two sort of sitting midfielders sort of together in a pair and then one at the top of the triangle. I think it's been Odegaard recently. But usually, if it's Xhaka and El Neni or like Xhaka and Ceballos playing in there together, sort of the normal sort of defensive formations, the 3-4-3. And then when we're going forward, you've got Tierney and Bellerin pushing on. And then Xhaka drops back in with, like, say, it's Gabriel and Louise. And then they drop into a back three together to make it easier to play out. I think El Neni sits in the free role, sweeping up and sort of bringing the ball into, or like whoever the free midfielder is. So I think it was probably about probably about 10, maybe 12, 15 years ago, I started seeing sort of fullbacks more wanting to go forward. I don't know. I always, as a kid, I thought it was quite cynical. I always thought, oh yeah, they're just attacking more because they're just wingers who didn't really have the pace or couldn't cross the fucking ball in. So that's why they're playing fullback. But like, yeah, as we said before, I want my defenders to be able to defend fundamentally, and you are, in my head, you're sort of wanting to play the ball into the winger. If you can get an overlap and get them behind and a cross in, that's a bonus. But you need to keep your shape at the back if you want to stay solid, and especially teams like Liverpool, United, City. City probably do it quite well, but Liverpool's, United, Arsenal, if we want to be beating these teams where they're going to sit low block and counter attack, you've got to keep your shape in your structure, because that's when they start picking holes in you. Like that's what Leicester did when they beat City 5-2 earlier in the year, and City didn't really allow them to do it this time. So 2-0 was it?
Yeah.
Leicester tried setting up the same, but this time just got caught off.
Yeah,
I can't remember who was in that game, players wise, but Leicester
few injuries
did last
as well,
time
haven't they?
worked. Obviously, Man City must have figured out what they've done and just plotted holes in.
I think Leicester have had quite a few injuries recently.
Oh, they've had loads. They had Vardy at one point, Madison at one point, Barnes is still injured, Sayonku is injured, Pereira's been injured all season. The list can go on, like how many injuries they've had. But to be fair to them, they've done really well. And I still think now they're going to end up going Champions League. I still think they will. I know a lot of people thinking, they'll drop out like they did last season, but I think they've got it. I think they're too good.
Well, they're only a few points behind. They're only a few points behind United in third, aren't they? Also, and you look at their team. They had that. Well, it's not a one-off season. Everybody thought that was just a one-off. That was going to be it, and then they were going to be mid-table. Kante was sold. Morgan, retired. Who was the other? Who else did they sell? Mahrez. They sold 2 or 3 of their best players, to rivals, but they're still there. And if you take City out of the equation, they've pretty much won it. But when you look at United's fixtures, they're a few points ahead of Leicester, but they got Spurs. They got Spurs on the weekend, away. Burnley at home, that's pretty much a banker. And then they've got Leeds, who can beat anybody at Leeds. They've got Liverpool at home, which they'll want to win. And then they got the Villa, so up until May the 8th. And Villa are, if they've got Grealish back, I watched the Villa United game at United, and I think United won, but it was a very close game. And for me, Villa deserved a draw. Grealish was playing, so he'll probably be back by then, because he's been missed big time by them. But if you look at United, who really are the only side above Leicester, we'll have a look at Leicester's fixtures in a minute. But there's 2 or 3 potential there where United could drop points, which will put Leicester back up, into second. It's hard to comment on United this season because they've had. They beat Man City. They've beaten Liverpool 2 or 3 times. They've lost against Liverpool, and then they lose against West Brom. They lose against Sheffield United, who I think were on about 4 points for the season at the time. And I watched a few of those games, and it's like, Jesus Christ, it's like watching Jekyll and Hyde. They're still in, obviously, the Europa. They did well against, AC Milan, who was, again, another team that's a shadow of themselves from 5-6 years ago. So you can't really talk about them in Europe. But in the Premier League, they've just been so up and down. And there's nothing to put for me. There's the only thing I can put my finger on would be the defense, because they got that many talented players in midfield and up front. Pogba's been missed big time, and he's back now. So I don't know. It's just inconsistently is massive at Man United, and that's. But on a huge plus point, they're second in the league.
Yeah,
which is either good for Man United, or that the teams below them, apart from a couple who've way overperformed, like Leicester, West Ham, Everton, it's been a poor season for the big clubs.
I think for everyone, it's been. I think with what's going on in the world, I think it's just been a very strange season. You'd look at teams having a good season and they've not done that well. It's a hard one. It really is a hard one to sort of comment on, because, well, every team's had a good run and then had the complete opposite. I think United at the start, maybe, was there uncertainty with Solskjaer? Were fans not happy with him? Or am I getting that wrong?
I think that he went on a run of about 6 or 7 games, but then it went pear-shaped. But it's these casual social media supporters who are, United, they've lost 2 games, off with his head, and you're like, seriously? He's a young manager. He's come, his mold, wasn't it, that in Norway that he did well for. He earned his stripes on a very small scale. Maybe it's a huge jump to United, but they've thrown him in at the deep end. I was discussing a couple of days ago about, David Moyes did very well on a small budget at Everton, but then it's not so much about the size of the club, it's who your players are. So you're a manager at Everton. He had no world-class players. He had no names like James Rodriguez or Rick Carlson. He never would have, because he's a second string Man United, assistant coach, so he's earned his stripes at Everton, never brought on a big name like Ancelotti did, or Pep Guardiola. It's all down to your name. These guys like, Louis van Gaal, they've all been at Barcelona or Real Madrid. So the foreigners know the name and they can bring players over. So he did everything at Everton with no named players. And then he's been thrust then into a dressing room where I think Pogba was already there, wasn't he? I think.
Yeah.
So you've got players like that. I think Rooney was still there. So obviously he's known to Moyes. But everyone else, the teacher should be up there and the pupils are down there. Whereas when you've got a club like that, then you're not going to listen, or you're not going to respect a manager who is kind of beneath you. Whereas Guardiola, he's been lucky enough he did well at his first club. He was a Barcelona player. Not being funny, if you were given the amount of money that Guardiola's been given, you could put 30 managers from the Premier League and the Championship into Man City's role. And as long as they've got the pull to bring the names in, the money is there. It's not you put him in a Sheffield United for the next 10 weeks, and let's see him get them off the bottom. For me, it wouldn't happen. So for Solskjaer to come in for 18 months and get them to the quarterfinals of the Europa, second in the Premier League, they lost in the last round. So was that the quarters of the FA Cup, or was that? So you got to the quarters of the FA Cup. They got quite far in the Carabao Cup. I think they lost. I think they
semi-final, was it?
No. I think it might have been the quarters or last 16. But he's got them to the final 4 rounds of every cup and Champions League next year. For me, in your second season, after a terrible 2 or 3, since Fergie's left, we've done nothing. We've done nothing. They've brought in Mourinho. They should have brought him in when he was after Ferguson. They brought, it's been a 5-year transition period where I think that he's done a decent job. It doesn't matter who you bring in after Ferguson, they're going to struggle. But I think he's done a decent job, and you only need to look at the stats for that.
I think when you're going into there, when you're saying like the struggle, it is literally you've had trying to think what the word is now. Oh, I'm just trying to explain it. You've had someone there for so long, they've got their ways, and they've managed to get everything clicking. So that's going with the chairman, the fans, the staff, the behind the staff, the guys that literally just basically everyone involved in that club had a way, and it met Alex's way or philosophy. Sorry, that's the word I was looking for. Philosophy on how to manage high performance, and you've taken him away, and they're thinking, oh, we've got rid of him. Maybe we can still perform that way with our next manager. And it's like that manager or coach has to then step into this new environment that he's not been in and sort of adapt his way of coaching to suit the club's philosophy, which either is going to work or it doesn't work. You look at someone like Barcelona, they sort of have their style of play. If you sort of say that, you've got Guardiola, or just basically anyone who's sort of played for them sort of ends up going back to them because they know, oh, we've had this person before, they know the club, and therefore can sort of run functionally well for the next few years potentially. Whereas what United have done is gone and got David Moyes, the first case, who had his way as Everton, that was being successful. I think everyone can say he had a very good time with Everton, and then being thrown into almost a deep end and being, okay, you've got to adapt everything that you know now and sort of meet our style. So when he brought in Fellaini, at the time, I think people forget this, but Fellaini was on fire. Like, he was on fire at Everton. Everyone was like, wow, this guy's great. They signed him. It didn't work because he didn't suit United's way, more likely. Moyes got the best out of him at Everton, but didn't at United. And I wonder if that's just because he had to change his way as a coach to meet the demands of United.
I think with Fellaini, the problem was, he was on fire with Everton. Every time that he went off on an international break with Belgium, he'd score goals. He was physical. He's a perfect Premier League player. And I just think that even though Moyes brought him in, within a couple of weeks, he played a couple of games, but he stopped playing him. He was bringing him on a bit part. And I thought, you've just brought him in. You've paid, what's like 25, 30 million quid? Yeah. It was an astronomical price for an Everton player. But I didn't think he gave him a good crack of the whip. And, I just think as a striker, as I've said to Martin in the past, you've got an instinct, and if you miss a couple of games, that instinct gradually wanes. You're shooting for goal. You're not aiming at a specific area. As a striker, if you're running down the left, you know where the goal is, and you fire it. Whereas if you've missed a couple of games, same as what we were talking about confidence just now with Alexander-Arnold, your confidence goes. So if you're coming on for 20 minutes to go and you're expected to score, there's a very good chance you're not going to score, just because it's just the way it is. It's the nature of the beast as a striker. You've got to be playing. Like if Aguero plays now for the next 6 weeks, plays for half an hour. They took him off after 60 minutes in his last game. But a striker will know what I'm talking about. You've got that instinct in you. It's just there. It's inbuilt. But the longer you leave it, then it's one of those things that you can lose pretty quickly. And then to get it back, you've got to play 3 or 4 games without scoring to get it back. It's like a double-edged sword. I think that was the problem with Fellaini, that he just didn't have enough of a crack at the whip to at United, because I thought he was a good player. I liked him.
Didn't he score I think it was a season before he moved to United. I think it was at a 4-4 draw. Did he score like a hat trick? Maybe all 4 goals, something like that. Maybe 2 of them. He was he really a striker? I thought he was sort of more of a midfield player, and they just lumped him up top when they didn't really have a sort of playing him as like a false 9 against Everton, before Everton. I mean, I don't really he was a good he was a good Premier League player. I never really rated Fellaini at United though. I know he didn't I don't watch him week in, week out, so like you said, he probably didn't get a fair crack at it, but still it's just a bit of a I'd say Peter Crouch is probably a good player with good technical ability, but he is a really tall bloke. You stick up top in the box and you cross the ball into him and he nuts it in. Fellaini, I thought he was a bit similar like that, but sort of like meant to be like a combative midfielder that would win the ball and could spray it about a little bit, but I never really saw him as having much skill aside from being that sort of quite good in the air. I don't know, maybe that's because I didn't really watch him that much. But yeah, I'd say with what you and Lewis were saying about Moyes taking over and trying to replace Ferguson, he built a dynasty basically at United. It's like more of a franchise. What he turned into was it 26 years, something daft like that. 24 years he was there. I know we didn't have the same results at Arsenal when Wenger was leaving because I think United won the title the last year Ferguson was there. Similar thing though, we had that level of stability in the club for that many years. I mean, I know the team wasn't as stable. We were selling a lot of our best players to rivals and that, so that was a bit frustrating. But so you had that level of stability. Who is, especially at a big, I wouldn't say Arsenal are as big a club as United and City and teams like that anymore, but we used to be fairly well reputable. So who can you replace? You have to bring a big name manager in to take the reins. Unai Emery, who we replaced Wenger with, is not the sort of man you want to try and be challenging for top four or even challenging for a title and maybe picking up an FA Cup on the way or something. So he did well with Sevilla. I think he won 4 Europa Leagues or maybe 3 with them, or like 2 with them and 1 with another club. But you need someone. There was a lot of people talking about Massimo Allegri coming in. I think he was at Juve at the time, or he just finished with them. Of course, Liverpool recruited Klopp a few years ago. Should we have let Wenger go earlier to bring someone like him in? It's just some of the bigger teams, some of the manager choices they've brought in, especially in the last 5 or 10 years, excluding City and Liverpool, I'd say. I think Lampard did well at Chelsea with the transfer embargo in the first season. He did earn his stripes for a year at Derby, as you may put it, but sort of going from doing okay in the Championship and was it losing the playoff final? I think lost to Villa, did they?
Yeah, but if
So I
you've
think
only been a manager for 12 months,
it's a massive jump up, isn't it?
Manager for 12 months at a small club, it's that old analogy of, if you're a great player, it doesn't make you a great manager. And I think with you mentioned Wenger there and Ferguson as a business, because that's what you are. You're a franchise, you're a business worth hundreds of millions, if not touching on $1 billion with a few of these clubs, and you run that club. If you were a business and your top CEO was leaving and you knew they were leaving 6 to 12 months before, you'd be earmarking somebody, you'd be getting them in, they'd be shadowing them to have the philosophy, what Lewis mentioned, the foresight in where they're going, as a club, who you want to bring in, what you want to be doing. As any other business outside football, outside sport, you'd be looking at that thinking, I've got $1 billion company. This guy has done wonders for the last 26 years. We want this to carry on seamlessly. So you bring somebody on a year before. And for me, when Ferguson was leaving, I would, as a businessman, I'd be thinking, right, okay, who do you want? And I say they brought in Moyes, but 100% there was something going on with Jose Mourinho at the time. They were very good friends. They, 250-pound bottles of wine after a game, when they were playing against each other. And it's very rare that Ferguson liked anybody. He didn't like many managers. And for him to like somebody like Mourinho, who is another fantastic character, who's kind of lost his marbles in his way in the last couple of years with his excuses for losing games. But when he was at the top of his game and Ferguson was leaving, I thought it was nailed on. I thought he was going to be the next choice. And they could have, they could have paid a couple of £1 million. They could have brought him in for 6 months before and gone, right, okay, this is how we do it. He would have brought on loads of extra players because he's got a big name, like he did at Chelsea, like, he's at Spurs now. But it was he was a purpose-built replacement, and they let it go. It didn't happen. And then it happened too late. 4 years down the line, they brought him in, so he didn't have. There was no cohesion there with the Ferguson era, and as you said, the philosophy there of United and the just bringing it all from Ferguson into the next person. They should have been shadowing him. You had Mickey Phelan there for years. You had Carlos Queiroz was there for years. Just bring the guy in for 6 to 12 months beforehand, because you would do that in any other business. You wouldn't let your top guy go, and then think the next guy is going to do exactly the same, because they're different characters. Bring your own spin on it, but you've seen it work for the last 15 years at United before Ferguson went. He basically won everything apart from the world Team Cup. Oh. He won everything else, the Super Cup. He won everything, over and over again with the Premier League. Arguably the greatest manager of all time. So to let him go and sit up in the stand without honing and gleaning every single ounce out of him to put into the next person, huge mistake for me. Huge mistake.
There's a question for you. What do you think of old players come in, managers straight away? So we've seen it with Lampard and Arteta, where they've just come. I don't know how much work, if they've done a lot of stuff with the youth teams or whatever, but it seems to me that they've just literally been, oh, you were a good football player, like you've said. Good football player doesn't mean you're a good manager, but it seems to be almost like clubs are sort of wanting to go down that route. Almost like, the club straight in, which I don't mind, but in my opinion, if you haven't got that dirty side of it and going down to the lower leagues and working your way up, I think it's a 10 times harder job straight away, because you're in there like, oh yeah, I know the club. It doesn't matter. You don't know as much around coaching. How do I get the best out of these players? How do I know that formation is going to work with what I believe is going to work with these players? What are you guys' thoughts on that?
I personally think it's again, it wouldn't happen in any other walk of life. Me and Martin have spoken about the flip side of things, as in the older managers getting sacked, getting re-employed, getting sacked, getting Allardyce, Redknapp, those kind of people. That would never happen. If you were a manager of Sainsbury's, you get sacked, you wouldn't become the manager of Asda. It wouldn't happen. And on what you've just mentioned there, Giggs, Lampard, Rooney. I know that for the last couple of years of their playing careers, they go off and they get their coaching one badge and the FAB, the B license. But that's basic. Well, it's not basically. It is. It's a box ticking exercise. You've got your badge, right? Now we'll employ you, and to go to like Rooney's at Derby, Lampard's been there. Kevin Keegan, Dalglish. Dalglish did okay because he had a boatload of money at the time with Blackburn. Blackburn. But the rest of them, for me, it's a total no-go. You've got to. It's. You mentioned coaching. You've been coached as a player, but then, if you go and do an aerobics class on a Wednesday night at the leisure centre, and then the next Wednesday they say, "Oh, the aerobics coach isn't here. Can you take the class?" You wouldn't have a Scooby-Doo about the warm-up, the middle, the ending, the cool-down, the stretching. You wouldn't know it. So that's that's off the top of my head an analogy to do with football. You can be a great player, but you take somebody like Kevin Keegan at Newcastle. Jack Walker, was it Walker, or was he at Blackburn?
Not too sure, to be honest with you.
Two similar names. There was Walker at one. I think he might have been Blackburn, but there was two sugar daddies, and the one at Newcastle was a multi-millionaire, and he was given 300, 400, 500 million. He bought 5 or 6 strikers, Faustino Asprilla, David Ginola, and it was like, oh, fantastic. They were awesome to watch. They'd score 3 goals, but they would concede 4 because he had Warren Barton at the back, Philip Albert, who was like an Inspector Clouseau in the centre back, but he didn't have a clue about, they were winning the league. We did that famous thing where, I'd laugh if, and United pipped them to the post. But I just think that all of those managers, 5 years of coaching you need, gradually on your way up. And then if you're still there and you've got the name like Lampard, who's Lampard going to bring in from abroad? You've got the name Frank Lampard. He's fantastically famous in the UK, and he was good for England. He scored more goals than any midfielder in the Premier League, but that doesn't mean anything to a 22-year-old Barcelona academy player who's just come through the ranks. So I don't think there's any credence in bringing any of them into it, and very, very quickly they're coming through. And I can't really think. I think Gary Speed did well for Wales. After being a player.
Coleman as well, to be fair, did quite well. For Wales, I'd say.
Yeah, he did well for Wales.
Not for Sunderland.
No, but who was he with before Sunderland? And they put on
Fulham?
He was with Fulham for a bit, I think, but I don't think he did so well with them. I think that was just after he finished playing there.
But then he went to Wales, didn't he? He went to Wales. He did really well with Wales. He did really well at the Euros, getting to the semis, and then takes the job with Sunderland. For me, that was a backward step. You're your national coach. It's obviously 100% down to money, but why would you coach a side like that up in the north when you manage? You've done that well. You've brought all these players on. You've got Bale underneath you with Aaron Ramsey. It's not like you're coaching a Welsh team from 10 years ago where you've only got Ryan Giggs playing for you, who plays 1 in 10 games. I just thought it was a crazy move.
A few of the people I heard saying, some of that I didn't really understand. They were saying, I think Coleman's taken this team as far as he can. We got to a semi-final, blah, blah, blah. If you look at the amount of young players that Giggs has been bringing through since 2 years ago he took over, maybe now. Is it a year and a half ago? Something like that. Yeah. It was Rob Page now, isn't it? While whatever's going on with Giggs.
Well, it's still technically Giggs.
Yeah, but look at all the look at the players.
Rob Page.
Yeah, look at the players he's bringing through now. Joe Rodon, we signed for Spurs. He's probably their best centre half at the minute. He's been an absolute revelation for us at centre back. I was really worried when Williams retired. He was probably past his best though. Chester, he's been playing a bit more for Stoke, but he's probably a bit past it as well, age-wise. Ampadu's coming through really nicely, of course. Sheffield United aren't doing so well, but a completely different player in the Wales side. Joe Morel as well. He's playing at a lower level. I think League One with Luton, but he didn't do so badly in the Belgium game. We didn't have a lot of the ball, admittedly. Against the Czech Republic, I don't think Joe Morel's put a foot wrong in the Wales shirt so far, considering the level he's playing at as well. He's one of those players that raises a game on an international stage. You look at the young forwards coming through as well. James has been finding a little bit more form with United. He scored and set one up as well in last couple of games. Wilson's been doing okay for Cardiff. They got back. Did anyone see the Cardiff result? If it was 5-0 against Wednesday, who were 23rd and looking like they're going down at the minute as well. So that was a bit of a McCarthy ball not working in South Yorkshire, of course.
I'm laughing because every subject that we do, you bring it across to Arsenal or Wales.
I just go for a massive tangent. Right?
Every time. I think it's been about the 4th time you went across to Arsenal. We were talking about defenders. You brought it back to Bellerin. Wenger. Then you went off on that. And that was the way we were talking about football managers who are, we've got obviously Chris Coleman and Speed. They're 2 decent examples of, but I know that Speed went all the way through his coaching badges. Coleman did as well. I know Giggs did the same. Lampard, I know that he was doing his B license, but which wasn't really heard of 20 odd years ago when you got people like Allardyce and Redknapp and those guys coming through. There's some good youngish coaches who weren't good footballers like Eddie Howe and people like that, but when you're talking, Lampard, Gerrard, Rooney, top British, I think Southgate's done a decent job. he manages in his way. He's very relaxed, and he tries to bring, like, I suppose, a family orientation into the dressing room for his players. Yeah. I think he's got the respect of his players. But it's interesting that the ones that have been successful, all the ones that we've just mentioned here, are country coaches. So if you take Southgate or Speed or Coleman as Premier League managers, then you're managing foreigners, and I think there's a big difference between the egos of Pogba coming in at 89 million, or a Werner at Chelsea, Aubameyang at Arsenal, and Lacazette. These are top players coming in from. They're probably the best players in their team in Europe, who've been bought and brought in. They're coming in with massive egos, and then they're looking down at their manager, who is David Moyes or Arteta, and your reputation as a player will only take you so far. And when they're on the pitch and they're looking and they're thinking, what are you coaching me today? We're playing against, we're playing against Burnley on Saturday, and Burnley are an in-your-face, physical Wimbledon kind of team, and you're teaching us triangles and keep ball. Why aren't you teaching us, defending from crosses from corners, because they're going to be up in our faces? What are we going to do to combat their free kicks, because they've got 6 guys over 6'1"? And when the coaching aspect comes into it, and they're lacking in it because they've done a 6-month crash course or a 12-month crash course on Sunday afternoons, being taught where to put the cones for different drills. It's not real life. The real life comes when you go and coach a, not even Division 3 side, so like a conference team for 12 months, where people will look up to you because you're a star. Like I suppose Salford, when you had Neville, Scholes, Giggs, Nicky Butt, when they took on that consortium, they weren't the coaches. They brought in a coach, but because they're up there and they're respected, all those players respected them, and they've gradually gone boom, 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 and now they're in the league. Whereas 6 years ago, they were ice cream sellers. And I think that's the thing. You've got to, as Lewis said, you've got to start off. You can't just jump into a derby. That's like a purpose-built. That's like jumping into a manager's job at a bank when you haven't been a clerk. Yeah. You've got to start off on grassroots. For me, that's my opinion on that. And don't talk about Arsenal.
Yeah, I think it's one of these as well. With obviously I'm coaching myself at the minute. When I've not done elite players, I'm not updated just yet. I mean, it's going to be years. Well, potentially, I don't even know where I'm going to end up finishing. But to do people who don't have as much of a sporting mindset and don't understand the knowledge or the game, and when you try and introduce something that works at the elite level, it won't necessarily work lower down the line. And I think that's what a lot of people don't realise, is that pretty much as the lower down the leagues you go, the more not as athletic maybe, or not as sportive, not as competitive the leagues are almost. You could argue with that one. I might have just worded that a bit wrong. Basically, what I'm just trying to say is literally, as you get down the line, those players are completely different. They're not elite athletes. They're just community players. Like League Two, they're not elite. I think they've got the elite status almost, but where do you define elite?
I think the skill level's massively different. Obviously, if you take conference and the Premier League, for example, but to a point, I don't obviously think. Yeah, the level of how in depth the training goes, maybe Wrexham's training ground, for example, isn't going to have 26 massive video rooms where they're analysing data mid-game and telling the manager which passes aren't working and which are working. They're going to have some blokes studying the game. the night after and jotting it all down for them, probably something like that. You know, they're going to have bits of video technology and sports science, and that's come along in the lower leagues and it has developed. So yeah, it's a bit better, but I think the point is more in any other job, like we were saying before. You have to cut your stripes and earn your dues in the lower. You know, you start at a supermarket, you work your way up, supervisor, assistant manager, you earn the company. You know, that sort of trajectory, isn't it? You're not just going to go straight in at a thingy level if you have no experience, apart from ex-players, it seems. I don't think there's any other sport really where an ex-player will get thrust straight into a manager job. You know, you didn't see Sam Warburton taking over from Gatlin after he finished with Wales, did you? I think I can't think of any other managers that have come straight from being a player that have been successful, really. I was trying not to relate it back to Arsenal, but the only
Well,
other
yeah,
one
that's
I
the
can
only one I
think
could
that's
think of.
been a manager was Vieira. And also, I'd like to say I've got to stick where I'm comfortable and where I'm knowledgeable when I'm out of my comfort zone. So, but yeah, he wasn't very successful in Nice either, was he? I don't think they kept him on for very long. So, I think he's jobless at the minute. So, Sol Campbell, but again, he was in the lower leagues. Was it Macclesfield he was with?
But he started off down low, didn't he? Which
Yeah, that's what I mean. He started off lower down though, so I understand that appointment, and it's a big name for, you know, former Arsenal player, former Spurs player, England player, won the FA Cup a few times, won the Premier League a few times.
But
Big draw for the club, like
you've either got it or you haven't, you know. And
Yeah.
I just think, you know, as a teacher, and you've got a class of 25, the range of abilities is from 0 to 10. So you've got to have you know, your 3 or 4 different aspects of, you know, differentiation in there. So if you're starting off and you're Lampard and you're in the conference, yeah, you're not going to be coaching, you know, to have two wing backs, because you're not going to be expecting them to run for 90 minutes up and down. So, but then you still want them eventually to become wing backs. So, you know, you're just coaching them differently. You know, you're not expecting them to do what Robertson at Liverpool can do, because they haven't got the ability. Because if they've got the ability, they wouldn't be playing in the conference. You know, if you're 19, 20 and you're playing in the conference, there's a 99% chance that you're never going to play in the Premier League. Because if you'd have been picked up at 14, 15, there's very few players who are, you know, Division 3 downwards. You know, Vardy would be an exception. There's not many that come through. So if you're a coach in that league and you're thrown in there, you know, you've done your badges, you know, even if you're Lampard, you go down there, you're going to be nervous. You know, you're going to be nervous for a long time. Am I coaching correctly? You know, what am I doing? You know, lesson plans on an evening, like what a teacher would do. What am I going to do tomorrow? Like if you're teaching a circuit class. You know, I taught circuit class for 6-7 years. But I suppose after about 4 years, I could walk into that class and put the stuff out, you know, to do with the press ups, the sit ups, the squats, all the different things, and do it off the top of my head. But it took a long time, you know. And so you go to a conference side, and for a good couple of years, you're going to be tuning up and you're going to have lesson plans probably sitting in the car of how you're going to coach. Because, you know, there's no point teaching a striker to do, right, okay, we're going to go on a 9-mile run today for your, you know, because we're going to be doing VO2 max testing for your lung capacity next week, or start the season off with a bleep test for your strikers, because the strikers really should be doing, you know, sprints. You know, you're in effect, most of you're doing a little bit of jogging to get yourself into position, but then it's sprinting off the mark from different angles. So the strikers are doing that with, you know, with shooting skills, ball control, you know, and holding the ball up. Whereas your midfielders is a hell of a lot more running. Your defenders are doing the opposite, because they're going to be doing a lot more sprinting back. And then you got your goalkeeper, who has his own goalkeeper coach, doing totally different drills. So there's so many aspects. So if you're a manager who's never managed before and you're Lampard, your head's going to be blown, and that's one aspect. And then you've got the managing players who are multi-million-pound prima donna 19-year-olds who are wearing, you know, 100 £150 pair of pants, you know, with a £500 Supreme t-shirt on. They don't have any clue about money because they've had it for 2 or 3 years. They're on 20 odd grand when they're 17 and they've already bought 3 houses by the time they're 20. So how do you deal with all of that when you've literally been that player yourself 12 months before? I don't think it can be done.
No, that's I think that's why they just I don't know. I don't think a lot of former players cut for it. Like we said before, I think a lot of ex-players who don't cut it early on, like Eddie Howe and what's the Wolves manager was he a goalkeeper for Porto, but he was a second choice for Mourinho or something like that. Am I getting that wrong, or was he a goalkeeping coach for him? Santos, Nuno Santos.
No idea, I'm afraid, mate.
No. Okay, that might be right or wrong. I can't remember. Yeah, I don't really think. I think it's just too much to learn. Like with anything, you can learn to coach, and Arteta's work than the Guardiola. You'd like to think, was he a coach after 2 or 3 years before he took over at Arsenal, something like that. Yeah, I just don't think he's cut out.
He can't do it, can he? He can't do it.
No,
He
can't do it. Can't do it. He's like John.
Got any ideas?
He's like John Inverdale. Let's talk. Wales are playing Scotland.
England.
Wales are playing Scotland today. Let's talk about England. We'll talk boxing in a minute, and I see how long it can take to get back to. Well, they were. There was a good fight on at Highbury in 1991. But yeah, I think we can probably bring that to a close by saying that you'd have to spend 5 to 7 years coaching, gradually working your way up, I think, to get to have the respect levels. That would be my answer, Lewis, I think.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with it as well. I think maybe even longer. I think about 10 years. You literally have to start off at the bottom. That is it. I think I use Guardiola quite a lot, respect him, and look up to him. He's fantastic. He literally stayed at Barcelona, did he? Worked with the Bs, probably even the academy. Like when you go down, you probably face more challenges with kids. Like kids can just be unpredictable. Like you don't know what they're going to do. So there's a new challenge straight away. How do I predict them? Also, they don't have the mindset of what an elite athlete has. So how do we work there with the kids? How do we make them sort of focus or enjoy this session? And then with the elite athletes, can you get them to do the same thing? It's a completely different environment. And you have got to learn from the bottom, in my opinion, and just work your way. Keep working. Every time you coach, you're going to learn. The players will make you learn.
I think also, to take it back even one step further, if Guardiola is stepping back and he's coaching like whatever, Barcelona under 13s or 14s, all of those football players are brilliant 13-year-old football. They're technically good. They'll have already be eating correctly. They'll be the best in the world. So take it back a step and go and coach 8-9 year olds in a local leisure centre, and then see, because you're then teaching kids. You're teaching humans how to actually kick the ball. Because I remember and 7 to 10 year olds, and the hardest part at the beginning, you take them on a 10-week course, and at the beginning you're literally trying to figure out a way of stopping 16 8-year-olds chasing a ball like it's a magnet.
Yeah.
And then you have to do things right. Okay, so you can tell who's going to be a defender. You can tell who's going to be a midfielder and a striker, even when they're 8-9 years old, there or thereabouts, just by their physical attributes. So it's like, right, okay, you 2 or 3, you're playing in defense today. So then you put cones out 30 meters ahead of them, and you're not allowed. You're in a zone, and you stay in that zone for the half an hour. Midfielders, you've got a free rein. Strikers, you've got to stay in the top end. You're not teaching them to be poachers, but you're teaching them to be. That's the area that you can score your goal in. So if you take somebody like Lampard back to that, where they've got to think about the game in a way where the kids don't know what they're doing, and then it's easier. Then when you start teaching 13-year-olds who are really good and they know what they're doing, then you can pick up on their little mistakes because you've seen the mistakes being made at the low, at the basic level, and that could be that's another way of of doing it. There's no, if you're coaching a team of 13-year-olds, so really they don't need much coaching. They're pretty, Lionel Messi was at Barcelona when he was 12, 13. He was beating 5, 6 players. What are you going to coach him? If you coach him, you're going to be coaching him out of things that he's good at. Just get on with it. Carry on. Do what you're doing. And they've let him carry on, and he looks exactly the same now at 30 odd as he did when he was 13. Whereas if he'd been playing in a British side, that old adage of you're coaching the flair out of them. Like I'm hoping that Guardiola won't do it, but Foden gets the ball, and he's not frightened to beat 2 or 3 players. If he loses it, he loses it. Whereas there's a lot of teams in the UK where that's coached out of players. They're scared of the crowd getting on their back because they've lost the ball a couple of times. Whereas you watch Foden, he wants the ball he looks like an Iniesta. He looks like a Barcelona player. He's in the triangle all the time, and he's been coached that way from a young age. Whereas a lot of these players, when they get to the Premier League, they're coached out of it. So I think the experience of being coaching really young players who haven't got a clue is a lot harder than coaching a 13-year-old Messi, who could probably do 1,000 tap-ups as opposed to 2 tap-ups and then the ball is gone. That's another theory.
Oh, there's many. There is many.
So if we move on to so we got the Premier League then. West Ham punching massively above the weight with some good signings in the summer. What are your thoughts on their league position at the end of the season?
They're 4th currently, aren't they?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. It's a tough one because Lingard's in form at the minute, and he's doing super well.
Firing them in.
I'm looking at my phone now, seeing the teams around like there. Oh God, that's a good question. Just because they're on so much form, I don't know who they're playing the next few games either. So that's a hard one. Chelsea seem to keep clean sheets and then end up losing 5-2 to West Brom. Definitely sending off in helping there.
West Ham have got Leicester on Sunday, so that'll be quite a good one because I think they're above each other.
I think that might show
got Newcastle, Chelsea, Burnley, Everton, Brighton, West Brom and Southampton. Most of their games are winnable, probably apart from Chelsea, but they got battered by West Brom, didn't they? So I think
you just mentioned there they've got Leicester, they've got Chelsea, and you Everton. This is Everton.
Oh yeah, Everton as well. So that's probably another.
There's 3 games there out of the next 6 of if they can beat those 3, then they'll be right up there because those 3 are the teams that are the 3 of the 4 below them. What you just said there on those fixtures, the others are winnable, but it's crucial for them to be beating. A couple of them. Chelsea, I think. We've gone to Chelsea in a bit, but yeah, I don't know what.
To be fair, I think there's a few teams that have got a few tough fixtures. Like I know Leicester's is. I think the last 4 games they've got a tough run in.
They've got
I'm not too sure.
Chelsea as well. I think it's going
to be an interesting one. I can tell you that.
Well, let's obviously take out the West Ham game on Saturday. Then Leicester should beat West Brom. They should beat Palace. They should beat Southampton. They should beat Newcastle. So they should have a 4-game winning streak. But then when it comes to May, they got United, Chelsea,
Tottenham, the other one,
and Tottenham away. So they got 3 games, three teams there that are potentially, top 4 sides. Even Spurs,
The one I was going to mention there is Newcastle could be in a relegation battle, which they are. If Fulham pick up a few points, that could be quite a tough game as well because Newcastle will need a win.
Yeah.
Practically. So those games we always think sort of the lower down we can win this automatically sort of thing. It's amazing how when you go down to those games, if they've got something to fight for, it's going to be an interesting game.
Yeah. It's going to be. I think with all of these teams, because we were looking at it about 6 weeks ago, where the top 10 were just interchanging every week. There was 3, 4, 5, 6 points between 6 or 7 teams. The disadvantage for like Chelsea, they've still got is it Champions League or are they in the Europa? Champions League. They're in the quarterfinals. They're playing against Porto. If they get through, they're obviously going to have the extra games, whereas West Ham won't, and a couple of the other teams, won't either. So there's the extra games, can count. But Chelsea, they've got Palace. They got Palace next week, but then they've got Man City, and West Ham. I got Man City twice. So have they? No, I think it might be a rearranged game. Is it? Have they got them twice?
There shouldn't be a rearranged game.
Oh no, it's they got the FA Cup. It's the semi-finals in it, but then so they got Brighton, Fulham, and then they've got Man City, Arsenal, and Leicester. So they got 3 tough games in a row. I know that they've obviously with the new manager, he's been erring on the side of Marcus Alonso, who's been playing a lot more. Who I think he's a great player, but I just think he's got that many good players. He doesn't know what side is his best 11. With Havertz was fantastic when he joined, but then he got COVID, and I don't think he's been right since. I don't know what your thoughts are on him, and obviously Werner. I think the pressure of his transfer fee and coming to the Premier League, he looks very sharp, but consistently can't score goals, and that's a major problem for me.
Yeah, some of the new signings, that Ziyech, he's been quite good occasionally and absent most of the other time as well. But he was he free?
He's been injured a couple of times.
I don't know how much they paid for him, or whether he was out of contract with Ajax, one of those Bosman transfer things. Yeah, same with Chilwell. Maybe he's had injuries, I know as well, but a lot of I think some of the players they've brought in haven't really been doing the job. And I think when Tuchel came in, I think they had gone 10 unbeaten until the West Brom game on Saturday, was it? I think. Thiago Silva had just come back for that one as well. He was missing for quite a few games. He got sent off early, so oh well, it wasn't a straight red, so it'll only be one game he's missing probably, so it won't be too bad. But yeah, sort of getting the man sent off was probably why they capitulated under. I think West Brom just sort of smelt the blood a bit and went for it, and they did really well. Scored some decent goals. That Callum Robinson as well. There's some weird stat. He's only scored 5 times in the Premier League, and they're all against Chelsea, which is pretty crazy. That Pereira looks a half decent player. I know he was top playmaker in the Championship last year, something like that.
He had an absolute fantastic game against Chelsea.
I think
once that sent off, and he was just on fire.
Yeah, he scored 2 in a couple of minutes of each other in added time. I remember. I think I was out walking with Ella when that game was going. I remember checking the score. No, I was playing up on the Premier League app on my phone. Check it again. Oh no, they are 2-1 up, and Silva has been sent off. That's great. Brighten my Saturday up a bit, but yeah, I think Tuchel is an improvement manager wise from Lampard. But I think Chelsea still need to sort out a few of the players. I still maybe think they don't know the position of some of their players in the side, because they've been playing. I think they're playing him more centrally recently. But when he first came in, Werner was playing sort of like a left wing forward type. I think he had played there for Leipzig sometimes, but he is more of a playing off the shoulder striker, sort of finishing him behind. So maybe that knocked his confidence a bit, and I think he went a while without scoring. Or did he score a few when he arrived, and then he's gone quite a while without scoring since? I know his form's been quite patchy. But yeah, Havertz, again, another quite young player. just maybe COVID has sort of, he's probably not fully recovered from that. I think he did get it quite badly. He was missing for a while, wasn't he?
Yeah.
But seeing how well he stood out for Leverkusen and how well they did in the Champions League, you've got to imagine he's going to pick that form back up at some point.
He played really well. When he came, he played really well. He scored a hat-trick, I think, in his first game in a cup competition. Scored a few goals, some assists. But he was good. But then, I know he contracted COVID and he hasn't been the same since. But Chilwell was fantastic when he came. And he's another Leicester player, isn't he?
Yeah.
He's had a great time at Chelsea, but got injured. And obviously, he's working his way back in. They can't seem to pick a consistent keeper because they brought in, is it Mendy?
Mendy, yeah.
Yeah, they brought in Mendy, and he had loads of clean sheets, was playing very well. And then the new manager came in and they swapped the keeper back, and it's back and forth between the keeper. Werner, he hasn't been playing. He's played a couple, then he's missed a couple because they've been starting with Giroud, who's been scoring goals, so that's a decent call. But there's no consistency there, and I think that's probably the problem. They're picking different sides quite a lot. They've won quite a few games. Obviously, they lost against West Brom. 10 men. Sometimes you play against 10 men, and it's difficult to break them down. But West Brom fighting to get a step closer to Fulham. I think they're probably 5 or 6 points down on third from bottom. They've still got a slight chance, very slight. But, when you're beating teams like Chelsea, it's going to give you a boost for your next game. But, I don't know.
I don't think you can read too much into it. I think they're playing with 10 men for about 60 minutes. And they've been playing the Champions League midweek as well, FA Cup games as well, because they're in semi-finals now. So, but yeah, you should have got the fixtures up for the weekend. Actually, should we have a little?
I've got them now. If you want them.
Yeah, go for it, mate.
Yeah. Okay. Friday, you've got Fulham against Wolves.
Go on then. So, for me, Wolves on that one.
Yeah, I'd say Wolves probably 1-0, maybe 2-0.
I fancy a draw.
Okay.
I'm going to be that awkward one that goes for the draw. Saturday, you've got Man City against Leeds.
Oof.
Man City.
At Man City, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Bielsa masterclass.
You've also got Liverpool and Aston Villa.
I think it depends if Grealish is back. I know he was close to fitness. They didn't pick him for the last game, but he was close. So whether they risk him, because Villa need a few wins now because they've slipped up. If they had at one point they had 3 games in hand over Liverpool and would have gone above them, whereas now they're not. So I think that would be if they beat Liverpool and then win their game in hand, they'd go above them.
Yeah, that's right. Because they'll be on. If you went off it, so yeah, they'd be on
2 points above, wouldn't they?
They'd be on 50 points, and then Liverpool 49. So they'd stay the same. Or yeah, whatever. Crystal Palace against Chelsea.
At Palace, I'll go for
Palace. Yeah, I think I fancy Chelsea there. I don't
fancy
really.
Palace to nick a point against nicked a late point off Everton, didn't they?
Yeah, I just Palace don't do it for me.
No, not with them.
I'm not that big on him. In all honesty,
I think it's if Zaha turns up, they can draw. If he doesn't, then they lose. For me,
yeah, it can change the game.
Oh,
right. Sunday, you've got Burnley against Newcastle.
I'll be staying in bed, I think.
Draw.
I think Burnley there.
Yeah.
Then you've got West Ham Leicester at West Ham.
No, I think West Ham might tip that if they're playing at home.
With
the injuries Leicester have got, that'll be a good one.
Good game. Good game.
The thing is, so Leicester's injuries now are better than what they were. So Fofana's back, but Sayunku's injured. They've got a really good
trade-off.
Good spread, and they've got Ndidi, who's playing, who is world class for me.
Good play.
Yeah, I'm thinking draw Leicester. I think Leicester are better than West Ham, but West Ham seems to be more informed. But I'll go draw.
Close game, I think. Yeah.
Tottenham United.
That'll be a good one.
At Spurs.
Yeah. I can see that being a draw as well.
I think Ole is going to smash the bus.
Yes, Mourinho as well, isn't it? It's he'll be really up for getting his team up there, and obviously they're in sixth. They're only a few points down. What's the? I don't know. I'll go United on that one because they are on a bit of a roll.
Yeah, Sheffield United, Arsenal.
Arsenal.
Yeah, I'd go Arsenal.
If Arsenal don't win that, I'm not going to talk about football next week.
And then Monday, so there's 2 fixtures on Monday, West Brom and Southampton.
West Brom
might be on the Southampton, but West Brom might be up for that.
West Brom are on the bounce, and
West Brom might pinch it now.
But Southampton
had a comeback, 2 goals down last week, weren't they?
Yeah, they won. I'd look at Southampton actually. I'd probably go there. And then last game is Brighton and Everton. I'd fancy Everton.
Yeah, probably.
That'll put them above. Who are Liverpool playing?
Just said this. Villa.
Okay.
Yeah, because if Liverpool draw and Everton win, that puts them above Liverpool, doesn't it? Into 7th. So it's got to be Everton there. I think because Rodriguez has played well in the last game.
Yeah, he's hit a bit of form again.
Yeah, he's hitting some form because he was out. He was out for a while. So with him back and Richarlison, I think he's played 3 or 4 games since he was injured.
Yeah.
So he seems to be hitting some form as well. And you've got 2 class players like that back in your team. It lifts the whole team as well. And knowing that you're only 2 wins away from 4th, or potentially 4th or 5th Champions League spot for Everton would be it's there for the taking. They're on 50 points. They'll be in 6th if they win their game in hand. And with teams like Tottenham playing United and maybe losing, the potential of West Ham losing to Leicester, which means then really you've got a top 3 and then you've got a fight off for 4th. And there's about 5 or 6 teams in with a shout. Everton win their game in hand, all of a sudden they're 2 points off 4th. Yeah. So that'll be in the back of their mind. And for a team that's, for me, not a great side, it shows how poor this season has been with a team like Everton, who they've lost 10 games, and they potentially could be 4th in 2 weeks' time, and they've lost 10 games. It's crazy. Well, even Leicester are in 3rd. They've lost 8 games.
Yeah.
There's teams that come 3rd or 4th in a normal season who would have lost
5, 4,
3, 4, 5.
Drawn a few as well, but
you
need to be winning like 25 a season to get into top 4 at least.
So West Ham are 4th. They've won 15. They've drawn 7 and lost 8. So half their games they haven't won, and they're 4th. So it's a crazy season. If you look at Tottenham, Kane's backfiring. He's scored quite a lot of goals in the last 5 or 6 games. At the detriment of Son, who's, I don't know whether he scored any. And
I think he's been injured, hasn't he? He's just come back from, I think he was just fit last week, something like that.
Oh, that's why then. But I think he had a bit of a drought before he went as well.
He wasn't.
He wasn't firing because he was firing in the middle of the season. He's, hat-tricks, 2 threes, where Kane wasn't. Whereas I know Kane is banging them in now, left, right, and centre in most games. I think he scored 2 in the last game, whoever they were playing. I think they were losing 1-0, and I think he had 2 quick-fire goals within 3 or 4 minutes, and I think they scored a 3rd. From what I can remember, I don't know who they were playing, but they,
I think it was Newcastle. I think it was 2-2 in the end. Joe Willock nabbed one late.
Oh, they drew, didn't they?
It was.
but he's back scoring the goals. They're totally inconsistent. Another team totally inconsistent this season, up and down, up and down. 3, 4, 5 games in a row where it was lose draw. Whereas now they seem to be hitting a little bit of form, but they're going to need to improve because, as I say, they're playing United. They've got 3 or 4. What have they got? They've got so their push for the next 6 games, 7 games would be, where are we? January, March, April. So we've got United. Then they got a Euros game. Then they got Everton, which is that's FA Cup. Fulham. So Fulham, Sheffield United, Leeds, Wolverhampton, Villa, and Leicester. So really, they've got the easiest run-in of any team that we've seen so far. They've only got Leicester in the top 6. So if they have a good result against United, they could really be pushing for top 4 with those teams in front of them. They haven't got Liverpool. They haven't got Chelsea. So it'll be a tough ask for some of the other ones to keep above Spurs. From what I'm just looking at here, I think Spurs' problem is they haven't got strength in depth.
That's the problem. And when I feel a lot of the times when teams do sit back against them, and like Kane or Son, Bale now, Lamella, they're on fire and they do struggle with any sort of a plan B because they don't have. I don't necessarily think they have those players in midfield like some of the other teams like United, City, Liverpool, even Chelsea and Arsenal to a point do. Probably not Arsenal so much actually anymore, but Sissoko, Dyer, whoever's playing left, can you really see him putting a goal in from 30 yards when you need sort of one to get 3 points against Newcastle? United have got like Fernandes, maybe even Pogba. City, you've got in abundance. You've got Gundogan scoring left, right, and centre. But I know De Bruyne's playing as a false 9, but he's scoring. Foden, last minute winner against Dortmund last night, wasn't it? I think it's a strength in depth with Tottenham and some of the recruitment, like Bergwijn. He looked good in the Netherlands. In fairness, I think he had a few good Champions League games against maybe sort of mid elite to lower tier Champions League teams, but I don't really know. Saying that about Kane and that as well, that's a problem. How much longer is he going to stick around if they don't win anything? Do you think he's? Do you think he might be angling for a move? Maybe, do you think maybe he's who City have got coming in for Aguero, something like that? Throw that into the mix.
I think he'll stay. I don't think teams have enough money to sort of pay his bills.
That's the thing. His contract would be absolutely humongous to be moving it. It's probably not that massive at Spurs.
That's the only way I can see it.
Do you reckon his contract is that massive at Spurs? Because
I think it will be.
They're spending a lot of money to loan Bale. I think Son and Kane are going to be the top 2 earners, but at a PSG or a City or somewhere like that, you get
the
so
thing
much
is,
more.
Tottenham
would they be looking for someone like him? Yeah, that's
he's world class. So if you go after him, you've got to be prepared to pay over 100 million easily.
Oh,
over 100 million
easily.
Would you pay 100 million for him and whatever 200 grand a week? So that's 9, 10 million a year in wages for 5. You've got a 4-year contract, really, 4 or 5-year contracts. So you're talking 150 to 200 million, or would you take Messi at the end of the season on a free and pay him £2 million a week? Break the bank, he's on probably close to $1 million at Barcelona. So say, right, it's a free transfer. You're saving, 200 million quid there. So just pay him. You pay him £8 million a month.
You got Aguero's wage off the books as well if he's going out at the end of the season. So that's going to be most of it, probably.
Yeah, for me, it's a no-brainer. The guy has still got 2 or 3 years left. Like Ronaldo, these guys, they keep themselves fit. They eat healthy. They don't drink. They're not like some of the British ones from, I suppose not so much now, but 10 years ago, it's totally different. 36, 37 years old, and Ronaldo is still going and scoring goals for fun. He's done Spain. He's in Italy now. He's done it everywhere he's gone. Whereas you're talking, 60 million quid. You pay Messi 60 million quid, or 70 million quid a year for 3 seasons. That's 240 million. You're going to make over 100 million back on shirt sales, like United did with Pogba. Cost him 89 million. Within, I think it was 18 weeks, they got the money back through shirt sales. So, how many Man City supporters who haven't really got a history will be buying one of the best ever players to don their name on the back of their shirts, on the back of their Christmas presents and memorabilia, and they'll make so much money back on it, and with no transfer fee. And he's been edging for a move for 2 years. He's been unhappy there. Look at Barcelona's side now; they're rubbish compared to what they were 5 years ago. He hasn't got his childhood players playing with him like Iniesta and Xavi, and all Puyol has gone, and for me it's a no-brainer. I can't see why they wouldn't go for him.
The thing is as well, when you sign a player like Messi, you don't just get your own fans buying the shirts. He has a massive following globally as well. He's probably, I think it's Ronaldo and someone else that the most followed on Instagram, but I doubt he's too far behind. So you get all that coming in. You're going to get this extra attention as well, the sponsorship and that he's going to bring over. And for him as well, it's just he can maybe prove that he can cut in the Premier League for 2 years. Maybe he's the signing they make where City go on to win the treble again next year. They could do the quadruple this year, but I don't know. It depends on the other teams in Champions League. If they come up against this Real Madrid side, they might have a decent test. I think Chelsea were 1-up against Porto last time I checked. And
PSG was 3-2.
I think PSG with 3. Is that still 3-2?
They're
knocking Bayern out. They're knocking Bayern out at the minute. I think. I think they were 2-up, weren't they? I think Choupo-Moting scored twice, and then So they could, they could win the Champions League this year based on how those results are going at the minute. Right teams being knocked out.
Sorry, with Chelsea.
Yeah, Ben Chilwell scored.
Oh. Because we mentioned him, that's why I must have felt his ears burning, poor lad.
But yeah, no, it's a tough one, I think. But I don't know. It's I can't even remember what we were talking about.
Messi coming to City. Yep.
It's a no for me. It's a no-brainer. They've got all that money to spend. They don't need to spend a transfer fee. They don't need to be looking at the future of Man City 5 years down the line, because they've already got that there with, De Bruyne signed a 2-year extension. Foden's like 20. They've brought in young defenders. Kyle Walker is probably one of the older ones. You bring somebody in to win you medals for 2 or 3 years, and then look for somebody else. And they'll make, as you said, they'll make their money back in so many different ways with Messi. With everything, and you never know. The deal might even be done. Why have they said? Why they let Aguero go and publicly let him go months before the season's finished? That could be with the intention of saying, look, to Messi, there's a space there. It's yours. We'll give you £1.5 million a week or £2 million a week, because obviously he doesn't pay tax where he is now, or very little compared to what he would be doing over here with the 50% bracket over on most of his wage. So they've got to be paying him 2 million to be making $1 million, So it's a no-brainer. And they're meant to be the richest club in the world. Okay, prove it. Bring him in. And I think Ronaldo then might come back to United.
That'd make for a hell of a Manchester derby. I have to say. What would you think, Lewis? If Messi could come over and cut in the UK, would that settle the Messi Ronaldo debate for you, or same with you, Randolph?
No,
who's leaning which way?
I'm 100% Messi. I just watch him and I just see things I've never seen before, or I just see someone who can just practically do everything almost. Whereas Ronaldo still does the same, but I just look at Messi, it's just being like, wow.
I think with Messi, it's more surprising because Ronaldo is such a physical specimen. He looks like the sort of guy you can have a 7, 8, 9 foot vertical leap and stay in the air for a good 5 seconds and nod the ball in. Messi, he's quite short. He had to have the operations to correct the condition he had. Barca helped them with that and stuff. But I think quite similar to Maradona, because his centre of gravity is so low. Just the things he can do with the ball and the way he moves it about. And as a playmate, I know Ronaldo's positions sort of developed more centrally as he's aged, and he is more of a finisher, sort of out and out complete forward nowadays. Messi as a playmaker, for me, that's what sort of makes me. Yeah, and also because Ronaldo used to spank Arsenal back in the day to bring Arsenal up once more. But that always makes me lean more towards Messi, just his playmaking ability and how he brings other players into the game. And I think it's quite funny. Someone did like a highlight video of Messi's best playmaking moments, and most of the chances on it, I think he had Suarez and all the others actually put into the stands or put wide. So don't know why he'd make a video out of them if you're trying to make a skills video. But yeah. How about you, Randolph? Messi or Ronaldo?
I'm 50-50 because they're totally different players. Messi keeps the ball on the ground. He can beat people. You can compare him to Maradona. They're both Argentinian. They're both small. They both got low center of gravity. They're both good at beating people. But I don't think he's on the same level as Maradona. I watched Maradona when in his prime, in the 86, 90, 94, 90 and 94 when he's in the World Cup. He's the best player in the World Cup, and he was high as a kite. He wasn't even, and if you watch the 2-hour documentary on, I think it's Amazon Prime. I watched it.
Where he went to Naples, that one.
Yeah. He won. He won the title on his own. He won the World Cup on his own. If you look at the players that he played with, we talked about this before, that he's played with in the World Cup when they won and when they got to the final, compared to Messi's team. Messi's team were far better. Yes, they might be playing against better competition, but Messi literally dragged them by their boots to win the World Cup. Literally did it on his own, was beating team. You see Messi doing it in the Spanish league, where you get so much time on the ball, which you don't get in the Premier League, which you don't get in the World Cup, which makes him look like a better player. You could say, Ronaldo's done it in the Premier League, didn't score loads of goals because he was a midfielder. He was a right midfielder. He's done it in Spain. He's done it in Italy. He scores with his head and with his feet. Messi scores with his left foot. He scores with his right foot. So does Ronaldo. Ronaldo's fared better in the European Championships if you compare him to Messi in the World Cup. So, he had a decent Portugal side. Messi had a decent Argentinian side. So for me, it's 50-50. I think if he did go to the Premier League, because he's played his whole career, you're playing against Levante and you're scoring a hat-trick. And, you're scoring 50 goals in the season, but how many of them are against Real Madrid? How many of them are against Atletico Madrid? And how many are against the rest? I just think that the league is crap. It's slow. Even the Italian league is slow. It's pass, wait, So Ronaldo scoring goals in Italy and Juventus, pretty much on a par with Messi is at Barcelona. So for me, they're both as good as each other. But I still, Pele's a bit of a myth. Whereas, I've physically seen, Maradona playing for 10 years in my youth. And for me, he was a level above for lots of reasons. He was getting kicked lumps out of every game. I heard a story about Gaza saying that, was it Gaza? No. The Hand of God game where he scored probably the best goal that's ever dawned our
where
football.
He dribbled past half the team and
he beat the whole England team about fucking 5 times. But they relayed the pitch the day before or 2 days before, and every step that he was, and this is from I think it might have been either Terry Butcher or Terry Fenwick, and they were saying that you take a step and your foot was moving because the grass was literally moving underneath you. It hadn't been bedded in. So for him to do that turn in his own half by the centre circle, run past Peter Reid, Terry Fenwick, Butcher, go round Shilton and score with his right foot, where every step he was taking, the ground was moving. And every other pitch, you see him playing mud baths for Barcelona where there's literally blokes assaulting him, diving in with their feet. Imagine the protection he would have had today. You wouldn't have got near him. So for me, he's a level above. But on the Messi and Ronaldo debate, I can't call it. Bring them both to the Premier League next year, and I think then the debate could be settled. Because you can't really comment on Messi. He's playing against the same teams every year in an average league. Even send him to Germany, see what he would do in somewhere else. You've got to prove yourself. It's like being a British boxer and getting to European level, wiping the floor with everybody in Europe, but refusing to have a world title fight. It's or any other sport. You get to a certain level. He hasn't done it for Argentina. With very, Aguero, Dybala, they've got decent players, and they've never got anywhere, with him in the team. He doesn't seem to do it against international football players. So you've got the argument of the Champions League. He's done well in the Champions League. He scored lots of goals against the Premiership sides, but that's when you're up for it. You're playing on a Wednesday night in the Champions League. You've gone to a different country with your side. You're a few days in a hotel. You're up for it. But as the older, play him in Stoke on a Tuesday night on January when it's -1 degrees, the snow's coming down. How good is he then? We've seen Ronaldo do it. So that it's so many questions on that.